welcome back. This is Voice and Bloom, a place where we grow, thrive, and become better versions of ourselves. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about how to replace bad habits. When you're born, you're like a blueprint that has nothing on it. What you become, what you start doing with your life, those become your habits, and everything you do piles up to define you as a personality. So, your habits, good or bad, define you. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about how to get rid of bad habits, rather, you would say how to replace bad habits with good habits. It's not an easy goal, but we're going to do it. There is a say that someone or an individual can outgrow bad habits or get fed up of them. However, there are also some habits that tend to be addictive. There is a tendency that people have that you can outgrow habits or rather just get tired of them. But remember, it's very hard to single out a habit because it has become very part of you and you can't just let it go that easily. That's when you find yourself falling back in old patterns, doing things you swore you would not do again. That is because it became a habit and a part of you. The most effective way to get rid of a bad habit and replace it with a good one is not to focus on getting rid of it, but rather on looking at the new habit you want to replace. It's like a replacement. Your life is like a Rubik's Cube, if you know it. A Rubik's Cube needs all its pieces to stay together. So that's how your habit cycle is as well. Life is like a Rubik's Cube. For one removal, there has to be a replacement. So if you're going to remove a habit, you have to replace it with something else. You know how a Rubik's Cube works, right? You keep flipping, and when you remove blue, either red or yellow or white comes in replacement. It's something like that. That's how habits work too. You remove one and replace it with another. So if you want to remove a bad habit of oversleeping, maybe you're going to want to replace it with a habit. You're going to replace it with something that you can do in the time that you sleep, right? It's not something that I'm going to stop oversleeping and that will end. And in that time you're oversleeping, you're doing nothing, you will still oversleep. And years will pass by and you will still be an oversleeper. It's like a cycle. You remove one and replace it with another. So to replace a bad habit with a good habit, one, the good habit, you have to make it obvious, satisfying, interesting, and part of you. To replace a good habit with a bad habit, you make the good habit or something you redeem good or better, you make it one, easy, attractive, satisfying, and obvious. And for the bad habit, you make it difficult, invisible, unsatisfying, and unattractive. So if you weigh, it's like making the bad habit you've been doing, you make it the opposite, and that time and effort and attention you've been giving to the old habit, you start to give to the new habit. Because the more you focus on the bad habit, like, yes, I'm getting rid of this, the more it's going to grow into your systems. So the best way is to ignore it and focus on the new habit. And also you have to notice what happens before and after that bad habit you're looking to replace. If you have that bad habit that you want to get over with, you're going to look at the time, circumstances, and location. Like before you do that, what always happens? There has to be that something that always sparks off that habit. There's that something that makes you want to go back to that habit. And now that you will also want to focus on that because when you look at that, it's like the before, what causes that habit to go on and on. Since it's a part of your system, it's very hard for you to notice that, oh, every time I do this, this is what happens. Every time I act like this, I end up doing this. So when you want to get rid of that bad habit, you're going to look at what happens before. And then when you're replacing that habit, you begin with what happens before. Let me say, every time you want to read books, yeah, that's a good habit. You end up going on your phone and scrolling. Every time you scroll on your phone, you end up not reading books, but maybe watching movies or sleeping off. Yeah, and that is very unproductive. So if you're looking to replace not reading books or academic indiscipline or maybe laziness, you cannot do your work in time, you're going to look at your phone and make out a solution. How can you replace not going on the phone? Because the moment you replace what you do before, what you do after will be easy. Another example of a bad habit is maybe overeating. If you have a habit of overeating, and maybe every time you start with a snack, you find yourself eating a whole junk of food that you don't even need at the moment. So you're going to want to eliminate the snack that always starts the bad eating habits. That one thing that always sparks on that behavior that you want to get done with. And you also have to realize that starting a new habit means you're changing your whole lifestyle, you're changing your whole personality. You're choosing not to be what you have been. Maybe you have been a loser or not been good at what you're doing. Changing one habit can greatly change everything in your life. Another method you can use is stacking. You stack the new habit with a current habit. Maybe you like doing workouts, and then after workouts you've maybe been fond of eating again. Imagine you're working out to cut weight, and then after workouts you find yourself eating. So a new habit would maybe be meditation or reading a book. So you will say, instead of eating after working out, you will go and read a book or do some research after doing your workouts. It comes in slowly, but before you know it, you will remove the bad eating habit and also become a better version of yourself by eliminating eating after workouts, which basically means you've not been working out really, because the calories you've lost in the workout are less than what you're taking in after the workout. I'm just giving this as an example, but there are many other habits that come in after that make your good habits that you've been having as your work. You can start replacing these habits by maybe writing a list of bad habits you feel you've been doing, and then a list of good habits you wish you would become. And now you can do this by looking at maybe your role model or that ideal person who you actually want to be. Would they behave the way you behave? If maybe you met yourself 5 years from now, would you advise yourself to behave the way you're behaving? What would be that one thing that you'd like to change in your life so that in 5 years you'll be proud of yourself rather than embarrassed and ashamed of who you are? Making a habit obvious. This is the first law. Making it obvious. Making it obvious is going to need you to have an implementation plan and an idea on what exactly you're going to do. Making a habit obvious means you're going to make it part of your daily life, and it's going to constitute a percentage to what you do, where you go, who you interact with, and the decisions you make. To make a habit attractive, you're going to, should I tell you? Okay. To make a habit attractive, you look at it as an opportunity. You stop looking at it as a task, but rather an opportunity to change yourself and maybe your entire life. And also you have to trace the origin of that habit. How did you start doing it? What was that one point that made you start doing this habit over and over again? Every habit has a trigger. Like you started doing something not because it was part of your system. Though some habits are hereditary, they are involuntary. They come to you because your ancestors and ancestors and ancestors did them. But still, science has it that they can change. You can change yourself. It's not a compulsory thing, that you have to stay the same like your four parents did. You can change yourself. You are who you want to be. You are what your habits are. If you find yourself not doing anything productive for a whole entire day and you're totally comfortable with it, you have to work on yourself. Self-esteem, mindset, and these are things I'll be repeating over and over again until they sink in. So I was saying, you trace a habit. How did it start? What made you start doing a habit that way? In this, you're going to find yourself cracking the origins. When you know the origin of something, it's a better way to deal with it. because you will be able to find a solution, maybe replace a cause, or maybe find a better reason not to do it. Once you find the origin of a habit, it's very easy for you to roll out and make it unattractive. And once it becomes unattractive to you now, your system is going to look for something new, and now you are in the process of replacing a bad habit with a new habit. Now, let me tell you about the Diderot effect. If you're conversant with history, I'm sure you know about a French philosopher called Denis Diderot. Denis Diderot was well known for his encyclopedias and the great contribution. In fact, he was a co-founder of a French encyclopedia. So Diderot's daughter was about to wed, but he didn't have money to afford the wedding. And you know how the French systems were? It's like vice versa. It's the woman to, to pay the price rather than other way around, like in African systems. So Diderot didn't have money to pay for the daughter's wedding. Lucky for him, Catherine the Great, the Empress of Russia by the time, loved reading books and liked Diderot's work. So she offered to buy his entire book library and offered him 1,000 euros by the time. I think now it equates to more than $150. So when Diderot got this money, not only did he pay for the wedding, but also got himself a new scarlet robe. And immediately he got the scarlet robe. This is how the habits come in. When he got the scarlet robe, he put it next to his clothes and he realized there was no more unity, no more beauty, and no more togetherness between his new scarlet robe and his other old clothes. So what happened? He one by one started replacing his things. He bought himself sculptures for his house. He bought a new mirror to place above the mantle, and he changed a lot about his life. And soon and after, when people studied this behavior of Diderot, they related it to human behavior. Many people fall in this kind of cycle. When you do something, when you do something, it may definitely trigger you to do something else. Just like Dennis Diderot, anyway, he got that the effect was named after him. So that is the Diderot effect. When you start doing a habit and then it eventually leads you to another and then another and another and another. Let me say you go to the bathroom, you realize your hands are dirty, you have to wash them. Maybe you realize soap is over and then you have to go and buy more soap. And then if the soap is over, you realize you don't have washing detergent, the clothes are dirty. So that's the habit loop system. One leads to another. So that is why one habit can lead you to change your entire life, because one leads to the other and to the other and to the other. That's all I have to say about how to replace a bad habit with a good habit. Until next time, keep blooming. Bye.